everybody, I'm Nora Burrows. If there's one thing that I like making almost as much as quilts, it's bags. Specifically, tote bags. Aren't these cute? Here's one I made yesterday. Here's another one I made yesterday, and I thought we would make one today. Now these are the easiest bags in the world to make, but even though they're easy, they're still kind of fancy. They have a lining, and they have a pocket on the inside. You can make these with one solid fabric on the outside, or you can piece fabrics together like I did here. We're gonna do one of each, so let's get started. The fabric I'm using for the outside of the bag is this nice canvas material, and I've cut 2 squares, each 19 inches by 19 inches. Now, this bag that I made yesterday, I have a separate fabric on top as I do on the bottom. And what you wanna make sure is your final piece here is still 19 inches by 19 inches. So for example, I'm gonna make this bag that has this on the bottom and then this seam fabric on top, which I think is super cool. And so I have cut these to include a 1/2 inch seam allowance on both sides. It's 1/2 inch on the top and 1/2 inch on the bottom, so that when I sew these together, I'll flip this over, I'll sew right sides together 1/2 inch, and when I open it up, this total piece here will be 19 inches by 19 inches. And then you just move forward with this just like I will for the solid piece that I'm working on. I have 2 pieces, each 19 by 19. This will be the outside of the bag. And then for the liner, I have 2 pieces, also 19 inches by 19 inches. So you need 2 of these. And then we need to make a little pocket. And I always just eye this. I never use actual dimensions, but basically you want to take a strip that when you fold it in half, it looks, like a nice pocket size. The last piece you'll need is for the straps. These straps are 24 inches long by 4 inches wide. The first thing you're going to do with your strap is fold it about a 1/2 inch over, and then you're going to sew right down as close to the edge as you can. You're going to do that for both sides of both strips. Here I have my nice crisp edge. What I'm going to do is fold the strip in half. You're going to do the same thing with both strips. Fold it in half, give it a nice iron so that you have a nice crease here. Open it up, and then you're going to fold it so the bottom edge comes to the middle. Give that a good iron, and then the top edge comes to the middle. Again, an iron, and then you're going to fold it in half and give this a really good press, a really good iron. Do this with both strips. I've given this a nice good iron, and what I'm going to do is sew as close to the edge as I can all the way down the open side here, and then you're also going to do it for the other side. Even though this side doesn't open, visually it will look nicer to have a nice seam on both sides. As you can see, I have created my 2 straps. I'm going to take 1 strap and just one of my outside pieces here. And I'm going to make a little loop right at the top. I have my pins ready because I'm going to need 2 pins, and I'm going to measure 2 inches down from the top of my bag. So 2 inches down will put me right here. And then I want to be 5.5 inches in from the side. So that would put me right about here. So I'm going to move that in right there. So it's 2 inches down from the top and 5.5 inches in from the side, and I'm just going to pin it. Then I'll do the same for the other strap. 2 inches down and 5.5 inches in and pin. I'm going to do the same thing for the other outer piece. I'll take this outer piece and I will do the same thing with this strap here. Once I have each set pinned, I'm going to sew a square right along the bottom of each side of the strap. And then I'll come down on a diagonal, go back up, and go down on a diagonal the other side. That will make an X on the inside of my square and will make sure that my straps are very secure. I thought you might like to see me sew one of these straps on. So I'm gonna start right about here, which is about halfway down the strap from where it hits the top. I'm gonna start right in the middle here, all the way on the right-hand side and sew down to the end of the strap. Then I'm gonna make sure my needle is down. I'm gonna lift my presser foot and spin the fabric 45 degrees. And sew down to the end of the fabric again. Now this part sometimes gets caught a bit, so sometimes you need to lift your presser foot and just shift the fabric a tad, just to get it over the bump. Put the needle down, lift the presser foot, and spin it around. And spin it around. You can now take your needle out. So you've now made a square, you've made a box. Next, you want to make your diagonal. So lower your needle, raise your presser foot, spin it all the way so that you're aiming for this corner down here. Make sure your needle is down, raise your presser foot, and spin it so that you're going the bottom length of the strap. Needle down and shift so you're going on the diagonal to the upper corner of your square. And you just keep shifting it, lifting the presser foot if it gives you any trouble, and then you backstitch. And there you have your sewn box with the X in the middle, and this will be a nice strong strap. Here you have the outside of the front of your bag and the back of your bag. So what you're gonna do is sew these right sides together. Flip this one on top of this one. You're gonna leave the top open, but you're gonna sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way down, over, and back up. I like to use these Wonder Clips instead of pins. I think they're more effective and easier to use and don't put holes in your fabric. And so I will start down at the bottom and put a Wonder Clip on each corner. One at the top and the other side. And then I'll put a couple clips, I'll put probably 2 more clips per side and then sew all the way around, but leaving the top open. And here's my bag sewn together with the top open. I'm gonna put that aside for a minute and we are gonna work on the pocket. This piece here, you can make yours any size you want. This piece here happens to be about 13.5 inches tall by 5.5 inches wide. This just happened to be a scrap of fabric I had left over from cutting. If I were to cut this to be the exact size I wanted, I'd probably make it a little bit wider, but this is fine for me. So I'm gonna put this folded in half so that the right sides are together. So this part is open, and I'm going to put 2 pins right in the top as a reminder to myself to leave an opening. So this is right sides together. I'm gonna sew up and over till I meet the pin, and then I'm gonna leave a little opening, and then I'll start on the other side of the pin and sew over all the way down. And then I'll use this opening to flip the pocket right side out. You want to sew your pocket with a 1/4 inch seam. So for most of our other seams on the bag, if not all the seams, they are sewn with a 1/2 inch seam. In quilting, you always use a 1/4 inch seam, just like we're gonna use for this pocket, 1/4 inch, because you don't want too much bulk on the outside. But for things like bags and clothing, you typically sew with a 1/2 inch seam. But for the pocket, 1/4 inch seam. I have my opening here, and I'm going to trim the corners. This helps the pocket to lie nice and flat. Then I'm going to turn the pocket right side out. You want to push out the corners with your finger, or you can get something like a chopstick. And here's your pocket. Now you want to tuck, let's trim these threads first. Now you want to tuck this in, these seams in, and give it a nice iron flat and attach it to our lining. Take one piece of lining and take your pocket. The hole should be in the bottom, which mine is, and you're going to place it on your lining a little bit higher up than centered. So you'll want to center it in between the two sides, and you can take a ruler to aid you in that and pin that in place. You want to sew along the edge, leaving the top open as close to the edge as you can, especially along the bottom here, because that's what's going to catch this shut. Sewing along here will close this up so that there's no longer a hole. You also want to put little triangles in the corners. The reason for this is so that when you put stuff heavy in the pocket, it doesn't put strain on the seams if you have little triangles in each corner. So what I do is I start a little bit farther down on this side, and I go up on the diagonal, straight over, and then all the way down. That creates a little triangle up top. Then I sew over, and then I sew all the way to the top. I sew to the right a tiny bit, down on the diagonal, and that creates a little triangle on each side of the top. And there you have it. You can see the triangles in the upper corners. The top of the pocket is open, and then I've sewn all along the edge. Now we are going to put right sides together with our other piece of liner, just like we did for the outside pieces of fabric. I'll use my Wonder Clips again. Put some all the way around the edge and leave the top open, sewing with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I have sewn my lining together. As you can see, the right sides are on the inside. Now we're going to make the bottom of the bag. And this is so easy. All it's going to take is sewing a seam in each of the corners. So what you're going to do is first just snip each corner off right up to the seam line. Do that with both the lining and the outer part of the bag. We're going to be doing the same exact thing for the lining and this outer bag to make the bottom of the bag. Here's a bottom corner. Instead of sewing a seam along the diagonal like this, what you're going to do is you're going to separate the fabric and you're going to make a triangle like this. Okay, so let me show you that again. Instead of just sewing a seam on the diagonal here, you're going to separate the fabric and create a triangle like this. Now place the triangle on the table and take your ruler, measure 1.5 inches down from the tip and make a mark with your pencil. Now take your ruler and put it straight across and make a mark all the way along here. Now you're going to sew right along that line. Do this with both corners of the bottom of your lining, as well as both bottom corners of your outer fabric. Pull them apart and make your triangle. Draw a line 1.5 inches down from the tip and sew along that line. Here's my sewn corner. I'm going to snip off the rest of that triangle. I already did the other one over here. I sewed that and snipped it off. And now you can kind of see when you turn it right side out how it creates a bottom to the bag. So here's the front of the lining, and then if you turn it, you can see the side is not flat anymore because you created that seam. So if we do the same with the outside of the bag, trim off the triangle, and with this side, trim off the triangle, And we don't actually want to put this right side out yet. We want to keep it as is, but I kind of just want to take a look here for a minute, see how the bottom is looking. So the bottom of the bag is looking really good. See right here? That's where the seam is, to make it a three-dimensional bag instead of a flat bag. So we only have one, maybe two more steps. We are very close to being finished. We just have to put our bag together. So I'm gonna flip this right side in, then keep your lining right side out, and you're gonna tuck the lining into the bag. So when you tuck the lining into the bag, you want your right sides to be together. So when you look on the inside, it should be the wrong side. But if you flip it, you'll see the right sides of your fabric are together. Then you're gonna line up your seams. Find the seam on the side of the outer part and your seam of the lining, and you line those up and either pin or clip. You're gonna clip all the way around the top of the bag. You want to make sure as you're pinning that your straps are tucked inside, because when you sew, you need your straps to be on the inside of this part. So same with the other strap. Right now it's on the outside. We need to tuck it into the bag and then clip. However, you need to leave a pretty good size opening. I like to leave my opening in between two of the straps. So I can tell there's a strap here and a strap here. And so I'm going to remove this clip and this clip and add them right next to these clips, kind of as a reminder about where I should start and stop, because I frequently will just keep going and sew around the whole thing, and then I'll have to seam rip a hole out. So sew all the way around the edge, but leave a nice size hole right in between your straps. Now that the seam around the top of your bag is sewn, you want to find the opening. Mine is right here. So now you're going to reach into your hole right here, and you're going to pull the inside of the bag to the outside through that hole. If you feel that the hole is too small, just take your seam ripper and open the hole up a little bit, because you don't want to pull the fabric, because it could rip the seam, which would rip the fabric, which would be bad. Okay, so now this is what you have, which doesn't look too much like a bag. However, you take your lining and you put your lining into the bag and kind of give it a nice shake. And we're almost there. We only have one more step and then we're totally done, but this is looking really great. So you can see there's the pocket in there. Our straps are now on the outside. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a little top stitch. So we're gonna iron, here's our hole. We're going to tuck the seam in, give it a nice iron, pin it right here. And then we're gonna top stitch along the entire top of the bag to give it a nice clean look. Now that you've top stitched around the top of the bag, you are finished, but just kind of put your hands into the bag and push out the bottom corners as best you can. And I think this is looking like a pretty nice tote bag with a pretty lining, a pocket. The shoulder straps are a great length, nice size, well done. Here is the bag that I was making at the same time as this one that we did together. And that's kind of a nice, fast way to make these bags, doing them 2 at a time. Speeds up the process a little bit. I'm making these bags to sell at an upcoming craft festival, and I do have a video series on getting ready, preparing for that festival. So if you're interested in that, I'll post a link at the end screen. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for making bags with me today. I'll see you next time. Bye.